Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this video we're going to be talking about starting new Photoshop documents inside of Photoshop CC 2018, as well as opening up files on your computer in order to edit. So as you can see from the main interface of Photoshop CC 2018, we have a grid-based display, but can also be a detailed list-based display on any files we've previously opened, files that we were previously working on. If we want to open up a file on our computer, which can be a Photoshop document or just an image file, we would go over here on the left and hit Open. Another way to use Open at any time is to go to the File menu and hit Open or hit Ctrl-O on your keyboard. So when we hit Open, it's going to give us the Windows File Explorer, which will allow us to choose either an image or a Photoshop document from our computer. Once we find something, these would be images of .jpeg, .png, similar file formats, or .pst for Photoshop document. But once we find the file we want to open up and edit, we just select it here and click Open at the bottom of this pop-up window. From there, the image is going to be loaded into Photoshop and we'll be able to edit it. Now you might notice on this tab it says .jpeg, so we're still working with a copy of the image, but this actually isn't saved to a Photoshop file yet. If we want to save this image as a file we can later edit, it's a good idea to go up to the File menu and choose Save As, or hit Shift-Control-S on your keyboard. Specify a location on your computer. Change Save As type to PSD or Photoshop document file. So by saving it as a Photoshop document, you'll be able to make changes to any edits you did within Photoshop when you later open it up. So normally if you export as a .jpeg or PNG image, all of those changes then become final. But if you save it as a Photoshop document, you can make changes to any changes you previously made. So it's a really good idea to save your work inside of a Photoshop document file if you still intend to continue working on that. So here I'm just going to overwrite this PSD file. Now the other alternative, if we want to start completely from scratch, we can click the Create New button here, or if we already have an image loaded up, for instance, if we have this gloomy image loaded, we can get the same menu by going to File and then New, or hitting Ctrl-N on our keyboard as a shortcut. That's going to pop us up with this new document window. Now, you'll have this default Photoshop size here out of the box, which is 7 by 5 inches at 300 pixels per inch. So this resolution of pixels per inch, which means as a digital format, there's going to be 300 pixels for every inch of width. So really, this is saying the Photoshop document size is 2100 pixels wide by 1500 pixels high. You just basically take these small numbers and multiply them by the resolution. Now, that would be what you'd want to use if you intend to actually print your document out to a physical piece of paper in the real world, right? But if you're only working digitally and you only care about the digital resolution right now, you can click on this menu and go to Pixels, where you can specify the exact pixel resolution, which is more relevant to your computer screen because your computer screen displays in terms of pixels. So by switching over to pixels, we have the same total resolution here, where it's 2100 pixels wide, 1500 pixels high. Let's say, though, you wanted to change it to something like 1080 resolution, or 1080p or I resolution. That would be 1920 pixels by 1080, really good for things like YouTube thumbnails or video production. So with those settings changed, we can actually go ahead and set a new preset so that we don't have to manually edit it every single time. To do that, we simply come up here where it says Untitled 1, we delete that text, we give it a new name, let's say 1000p thumbnail. So we'll start typing a new name, and we could say 1080p thumbnail, or you can change that to video, whatever you want to call the preset. And then we click the Save button over here on the right. So here I'm going to type in the same name as before, 1080p thumbnail, and we'll hit Save Preset. So what that's going to do is you'll have this new Saved tab over here where any custom presets you've made are just going to pop up here. So anytime now that you want to start a new document with this preset, you just come over here to the Saved tab, you click on that, and you'll be able to get started right away. There's also other presets that are defaulted down inside of Photoshop. If you click Photo, you get these different options for landscape and portrait photos. You have print sizes, which would be more like regular office printer paper. Art and illustration, web design over here, mobile, if you are doing work that's related to, let's say, a mobile application, and then film and video sizes, just like the 1080p that we put over here. Just like the 1080p thumbnail custom preset that we set over there. So anyway, once you found a preset that you like, all you need to do is select it and then click Create at the bottom right-hand corner. And this will give you a blank white document that we can start editing in. So once again, I'm going to recommend that with any new document, you go to File, Save As, and save it as a new Photoshop document file. So make sure the Save As type is set to Photoshop or .psd. And we can give it a name here, since we don't want the default name. So I will say test document, and we'll hit save. Now I want to show you one other way to bring an image in. If you're already working in a Photoshop document, but you want to add a new image onto your document, you're going to want to open up the folder where your image is stored on your computer. So in this case, it's my pictures directory inside of my user profile. So I'll take this books image, and we'll just drop it right in. So what you'll see is that it gives us basically controls to manipulate and adjust the size of this image. We can drag it around, and you'll notice that as we get to the center or any of the edges, where the edges kind of line up, you'll get these purple lines, meaning that it's automatically snapping to either the center, the vertical center, or the left, right, top, bottom edges. Also note that there's this panel in the bottom right section called Layers there by default, where this new image is actually being put on its own separate layer. Now, we won't talk too much about that right now. Just note that a Photoshop document is composed of many different layers, and changes that you make on one layer do not affect changes you make on other layers. So if you make a lot of changes, you can keep them separate from each other, and anytime you decide one of those changes doesn't belong in the final product, you can delete the layer entirely, or make changes only on the layer where you wanted to change things around a second time. Now, if I wanted to take this image and stretch it to the full size of this document, I can grab on either the middle sides or any of the corners of the document and stretch it. So I could stretch here where the image is a bit bent out of shape, but it would perfectly match the actual size of the document. Or if I click on one of the corners and stretch both the width and height at the same time, I can keep the ratio more in line. If you want to have a perfect ratio, you should hit Shift. So note that while you're holding Shift down and you pull on these corners, that it's actually maintaining the ratio perfectly. So I could stretch that to the right-hand side. And now if I want to make sure that that gets centered still, I just drag it up until we get that purple line. And now it's centered here. Now, how you want to actually integrate your images into your Photoshop document, that's up to you. If you're going to be importing an image straight in and you want to be editing on top of that image, I do recommend you open the image instead with File, Open. But in this case, let's just say that we wanted to keep the same ratio, but we wanted to focus the image on what's important. So I'll pull this up until it snaps to the bottom because we want to have that door fully in the Photoshop document. And hit OK. So now that image is loaded in here as one of the layers in our document. The important part is still showing, and although part got cut off because the image size didn't perfectly match our Photoshop document size, we still have the image loaded into the document. So that's good. We can hit Control-S to overwrite the Photoshop document that we saved earlier, or you can go to File, Save As to save it to a new location. Here, I'm just going to leave Maximize Compatibility checked and hit OK. But to show loading this image up into its own brand new document, I'm going to go to File, Open, and we'll just choose this Books. So now we have the proper size for that image loaded into its own document, since the document gets created at the size of the image that we load up. To show that it's the right size there, we can go to the image menu at the top, choose canvas size, and if we change these over to pixels, you'll notice it's the same size as the actual image. To show that, I'll right-click on the item in the Windows File Explorer, go down to Properties, Details, and you can see that the size of both this document and the image we loaded in perfectly match up. So that's the basics of starting a new document inside of Photoshop CC 2018 and loading one of your images into that document, or loading one of the images as the document itself. I hope this tutorial has been helpful for you guys. I've been Chris, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in my future Photoshop content.